Okay, in this last one that I'm doing here, I want to touch on a couple other areas and a couple other tips I have. Let's do skin. Skin is complicated and can be hard to get right, but there's a couple tricks we can use that I like to use from more old school methods. Let's go ahead and create a skin folder like here. Now there's actually quite a few skins in here that you can use, but I mean, I definitely find them to be great for very realistic stuff, but not always super good for these kinds of detailed characters. It can be a little weird, but I want to show you a couple things we can do with it. So I'm going to add onto here into skin, I'm going to add a new fill layer, and I want to create a base skin color. So we don't need height and we don't need metallic or normal. We just need our roughness. And so in here, I'm going to create and get my kind of base color for my skin. Let's find a good roughness value, usually somewhere in the middle here. Not too rough and not too sharp. Maybe a little shiner, because skin is a little smoother than we're giving it credit sometimes. It's going to be my base. And let's add to this a black mask and make sure we're just choosing the parts of the mesh that we need. So under skin, do this, and select just this geometry, which is going to grab our eyebrows right now. That's fine. Sometimes it's nice to go through and put a base in for everything. So skin has some different tones. It has reddish tones, it has bluish tones, it has yellowish tones. It depends on the different areas of the face. In fact, let me show you a good graph. So this is one of the classic kind of examples where areas that tend to be yellow or brownish are really close to bone, like on our skull. Areas that tend to be more teal or bluish in their color tend to be where like capillaries are, or where the blood, I guess, is a darker tone. And the red areas are where we have a lot of blood flow going. It's often cheeks and noses and ears and things like that. And so it can get a little subtle in areas where there's blue and a little bit of yellow. Like right here is an area where there's our teeth are right there. Right here is right up on top of where we got our bone for our zygomatic arch. Of course, our eyebrows under here, over the sides of our face. And so these are like little subtle areas that we can paint in to give more color depth to our characters' faces. So in the simplest form, you start with something like your color tone, not very interesting by its own right, and we can add a few layers to it. So let's start by adding a red layer, and I'm going to go really exaggerated with this, like I usually do. And I just want color. I'm going to go really, really red, like way, way, way too red, because again, we can control this. I'm going to add into it a black mask. I really prefer this masking workflow. You can paint straight in, but the masks just make it so much easier to blend and change and shape things. So let's turn on symmetry. And I'm just going to use my brush right now. I've got a lot of flow set to it, which is how strong it is. And I want to get more of an airbrush effect. So let's change my flow and set my flow to pressure sensitivity too, and see size-wise how that's going to change things. Okay, it's a little bit better. Let's set up size. And I want something that's going to build up pretty slowly. So let's set its flow pretty low. So I'm just trying to brush on, areas on the nose, the upper cheeks, get it onto the ears, and I guess like kind of up and around just under the eyes here. Something like so. I've got my little diagram out to the side. Now, let's go ahead and I'm going to make a new one. And this is going to be my blue layer. And I'm going to make it blue. It's going to feel weird at first. Kind of a tealish blue kind of color. Black mask. Paint layer. And here I want to get around and under the mouth. Under the cheeks, like so. Definitely looks like, if you're saying it looks like she has a beard, that's kind of why beards sometimes have that bluish color to them. Get around in here. I also have things like the capillaries in the neck. And while I'm at it, let's hit up some of the areas that are a little bit redder in here as well. Now I'm going to do the last one. I'm going to do yellow. And it's going to look real sickly at first. Give it a little bit more of an orangish brownish kind of yellow. Yellow. And let's add my black mask, add my paint filter. And we're getting things like the brow. Just down here a little bit. And then up on the cheeks, there's a little bit here. Anywhere too that we have areas that interpret. So definitely does not look like how my character should look. But this is where we can use my color blending. So let's turn these all off for now and just go back to red. And on red, now we're going to take this slider and just pull it in just so we can barely start to see it. Really, really subtle. Let's do the same thing with blue. Let's turn it on and I'm going to take the slider, and this is like you need very little blue to just get into the character. Very, very little. And yellow as well. Let's take the yellow, pull it down, just so there's like a hint. And now we have a character that we can see it just has the slightest hint of change in the tonal reflection of things, but it has a lot more depth and sophistication than when these are turned off. So for instance, I turn these three off, it's just very flat and it's very bland. I turn these three off and there's starting to be more subtlety into it. It's a little cartoonier, so definitely blue might be something you do away with, depends on your character and your style. But these are the things that we can add in to the details of the face. Now, another thing that you'll see a lot of characters do sometimes is create a map or a position map, because we want to draw their attention upwards. In fact, you see the character highlighted up on the top, and as it gets further down, there's less color and it's a little bit subtler. So let's going to add one on top of this whole thing, and this is going to be on the whole character. I'm going to call this our gradient. And this is just going to be the whole top to bottom character kind of gradient on this. I'm going to add a black mask. We're going to give it a color. So as usual, I'm going to go real red, and I don't want anything else, just the red. And in my gradient, let's do generator. And under generator, we're looking for something like, let's look at position. So we can see here what's happening is it's blending up into red on our character. But what we want to do instead is we're going to change its direction. So let's see, top to bottom is good. Yes. What we want, oh, invert, that's what I'm looking for. So I've got invert, and now you can see I'm gradiating this color here from here to here. And I can change its mode to something like a blacker, a darker color. So it's going to draw my attention upwards. But as we noticed before, I can just sort of subtly blend it down, and it's going to help draw our character's attention upwards. Even as we do blacker, darker colors and change things up, it's going to help. But we can also change things like its blend mode to something like an overlay, or we can do like a saturation, which will let the top be more saturated than the bottom. So we might keep this really subtle, but it's just going to sort of start to desaturate a little down here. And we can make multiple of these that are at different things, like value, which won't change anything other than it'll just make darker values as we go up. Or things like changing our color overall, so it's making things like more black and white as it gets down. But I think just going straight here and doing like a multiply is probably what we want, because this will apply to everything. And we can just give it a little number, and it's going to help draw our attention up to the top of the character. Like I said, off and on, it instinctively brings us up to look at where the character's face is. So there's a lot of more stuff that you can do in it. I just want you to play with. To me, when you learn the tools of texturing, it's one of the most fun parts of this whole process, is just playing with it and being able to paint on details for your character. So I hope you'll enjoy it, and maybe even experiment with some of these procedurals and these other textures that you can find in here. Great documentation on this tool. But I'm really looking forward to seeing what people come up with, what you all make, and I'm looking forward to seeing some of these final products. Good luck, everybody.